it's based off of necessity. A lot of people are witnessing the frustrations of inflation right now. And before that, it was COVID that showed us the fragility of our food system. So
Mhm.
within that chaos is a wonderful emergence of opportunity that we need to be in relationship to co-create with Earth, and we need to be stewards again of Earth and kind of reclaiming our responsibility to Earth. So 5 to 10 years from now, I can see the landscape, figuratively and literally, changing within just localized platforms. Front yards won't just be cut clean and nice, and the little lines in the front. I'm seeing wild plants, pollinator pockets, front yard gardens, backyard gardens. I'm seeing communities rallying to support each other as far as infrastructure and kind of building their own trade systems. Um, I just really see it coming back to where we are more in line with our passions and purposes versus bills and our monetized gains.
The Grow Dialogue podcast is a liberation project that explores equity, inclusion, belonging, conflict resolution, and culture in the workplace and beyond, including in our personal relationships, families, and communities. Each week, my co-host, Mariella Marie, and I will bring you insightful guest interviews and artistic expressions curated to amplify emerging voices who are sharing practices that support society's transition to a more collaborative, just, sustainable, and liberating coexistence. We live during a time when divisiveness and polarization dominate the social, economic, and political discourse. In response to this reality, and empowered with the skills of authentic dialogue and systems thinking, I created an anti-oppression framework for social sustainability called Theory of Indivisibility to help illuminate a different path forward. Our hope is that these conversations and calls to action will ignite tolerance and empathy and provide guidance for our global listeners who want to actively engage in ending all forms of oppression while creating thriving relationships in the workplace and beyond. I'm Dr. Sundiata. Let's grow dialogue. All right, my partner, Lawrence, Nature Boy
Yeah.
Sills. Thank you for being here with me, good brother.
Oh, that's respect. That's respect. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Thankful for having me on this platform, man. I'm out here. I'm ready.
Let's go, man. Well, for those who are, listeners of the Grow Dialogue podcast, those of you who are watching, this is my fam. We go back a few years now. We've been out here collaborating in grassroots work in the Metro Atlanta area. So I'm really excited for all of you to get to know Lawrence Nature Boy Seals, or as he likes to say, Southside Nature. And I'm sure he'll
Yeah.
share some of his handles with you all. But I'm excited for you all to meet him because Lawrence is one of those people that I respect because he's a doer. A lot of people talk about it, but Lawrence is about it. He's about that action. And that's what I love about this man.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely, man. No more talking. We got to get action. We got to put on boots. We got to get the rolling, knocking on doors, the whole nine, man. Everything, every stone got to be unturned, man. It's that time.
no doubt, no doubt. So let's jump right into, sharing with the people who you are, man. So the way I like to ask it is, who are you? And more importantly, how would you define yourself?
Oh, man, who am I? El Naturino, the South Side, the rowdy man, free thinker, man, lover of all things, master of none. But yeah, basically, I would define myself as someone who just wants to be authentically me. I want to be able to be received and loved and cherished as just being me, and I want people to be themselves, just and have that freedom. So I guess I'm one of those. I guess it would be considered radical because we're kind of breaking outside of the mold of the normalcy, just by being ourselves, but in authentic ways and formats. Man, that's just really what I advocate, what I stand for. That's who I am. That's how I show up. Um, in a greater sense of purpose wise, I am a organizer on a community level as it pertains to hyper local food systems, and that's my passion. That's what's driving the boat and has been for some time now. that's all we talk about, all we dream about, all we eat about. Like, it's just how are we going to change this for the better for everyone, as it pertains to food systems and accessibility of nourishing foods and nutritional values.
Okay. Man, that's I love it. So tell the people where you are. Where are you located?
Oh man, we all in that south, man. South side of Atlanta, Clayco to be exact, Riverdale. About 15 minutes south of Atlanta.
Okay. And so you talked about, being a lover of all things and, being about freedom and, authenticity and, living that way, in pretty much every element and every way you live. In addition to being an organizer who's all about, advocating for hyper-local food systems. So before we get deeper into what that means, could you give us some insight into your journey to becoming who you are today? When did you get clarity on who you are and your purpose and the ways that you just defined yourself?
I believe it's kind of like a slow rolling to understanding oneself, because it's many layers. So I say the beginning started in about 2010, and I was out of the military, and I was doing therapy and things to combat PTSD and anxiety. And they recommended that I went to gardening sessions and started to ground myself. And that's a form of healing. That was a part of our daily thing, but it kind of overtook me. And I really found joy in just being outside. And so I started being a hobby gardener around 2010 with my family, my wife, and my young kids. And, it kind of, just stayed there, where I just kind of started learning about plants, not really delving into it, but just learning to kind of water them on a certain schedule, small things. Around 2014, my perception to just that small gardening kind of changed, because we were in the middle of Stone Mountain at the time. That's on the east side of Atlanta. We were in Stone Mountain in a small duplex, and I went to a local Kroger's. And the area I was in is only two stores to shop in, a Walmart and a Kroger. And those two areas, I chose the Kroger. After work one day, I was just stopping in to get some bread, some small things. And it happened to be a Friday afternoon, and the EBT system was shut down. And I'm just looking around, carts everywhere, people in like kind of chaos. I can just remember people saying, I don't have, time for this because I got to feed my kids. Fast forward, I went to another store. It was the same scenario. Shopping carts were abandoned. The store was in disarray. There's a lot of chaos, a lot of civil unrest is what I would classify it as. And I ended up just paying for my things out of cash. I didn't know, I thought the whole system was down. It just turns out the EBT card system was down. So I just ended up paying with cash, but I was walking out the store and kind of just taking it all in, just being a father and, just somebody who was always kind of like a preparedness mindset and mentality. I was just looking like, man, like a lot of us on this lower income scenario, lower income areas, don't have the opportunity to stock our shelves or our pantries, and we kind of live check to check. And if something was to happen, something like an EBT system that most people in my neighborhood rely on, it can cause a lot of chaos. So it kind of made me take a step back and beef up my gardening and kind of get a little bit more serious about it. Fast forward to 2017, we bought our farmstead here in Riverdale, and I went full scale agriculture and got our farm plot number through the USDA, became a certified farm. And I'm a fan of reverse engineering. So I got all the paperwork out the way and then went in to investigate how I was going to make my money, how I was going to make it work. Started going around the other farms and asking them about their process, how they make their money, what kind of soil structure they have, what are their amendments, just getting a lot of different tidbits of information. And I was pulling them back to my little 3.5 acres here in Riverdale, and it just didn't seem sustainable. The numbers weren't adding up to me. It didn't really make a lot of sense because with commercialized agriculture, you're supposed to clear cut your land, get rid of all the trees, get rid of all your biodiversity, and then bring in these inputs. And every time I turned around, it was like stacking up on the dollar side. And I kind of just turned away from it because I didn't see it as being sustainable, even when I got past all that rigmarole and down to the nitty gritty of how much I would make per bushel of greens or, pounds of onions, what have you. It just didn't seem right. So I kind of went the homesteading way. And that's where I kind of found a lot more security, because I just, instead of farming, which is just growing food specifically to sell, I chose homesteading, which is growing food to sustain yourself. So minimizing and closing that circle when it comes to sustainability. So we chose to be a homestead instead of a farm. And that really minimized a lot of my overhead as far as just bills, because we're a family of six. We have a good little food bill. So every month I was making a huge impact. So where I can scale down from working full time to part time. And then I started figuring out that people were interested in learning how we did it. So he turned into basically agro-tourism, agro-education. And right now we just show people how to live sustainably where they are. And that's really like the driving force for my passion right now. That's kind of where I melted into myself and finding myself, because I'm able to help so many people just by living my authentic life and like not having to dress it up or dress it down. People can meet me here, we can dialogue, we can chat. It's community building, it's food operations, it's everything entangled, like interconnected, right? That's kind of that's where I am right now.
Man, that's a wonderful story, man. It seems so. Basically, you looked around a few years back and noticed the problem, and you said, I don't want to be one of these people standing in this line, unable to feed my family, and decide to take things into your own hands. And I love how by doing that you became self-sustainable, self-sufficient to a greater degree, but also you went beyond that. And you also became an organizer, and you started reaching out and sharing that knowledge and that info with others. And so before, and I know there's some other things that you've done with it that we're gonna get into, but I also want to dig into a little bit more about the person that you speak to, that you are, this person that says, I don't want to just get this information for myself. I want to be able to share this information with others. When did you learn that you had this passion for people and this passion for helping? Because that's how we met. I met you as someone who was looking to reach out to the community, share your space with others, and let your space, this land, this property and the land around it, be a space where people from the community can come to learn, to share information, share resources, etc. When did you discover that you had this innate care and this innate love for others and your community?
I think I can't really put a time frame on it, to be honest. I think I see it more as a responsibility, and maybe the innate sense of it is that we all have this responsibility, and we have to challenge ourselves to hold ourselves accountable. So as far as the passionate side, I can't really speak on like when I found it. I just, again, like I'm saying, like when I say boots on the ground and knocking on doors, I don't do that for the love of it. Like, it doesn't feel good sometimes. Sometimes I get cursed out for knocking on doors, in the wrong neighborhood. And, it's not good. It doesn't feel great, but I have to move to the next door with the same spirit, because I feel it's my responsibility more so than my passion. And I think it kind of just, I guess it was just a natural manifestation as again, we kind of find ourselves. And my nickname is Nature Boy, but it's like not Ric Flair, not an old Ric Flair, but nature's boy. So like Mother Earth. And so I feel like that reciprocal value of giving back to Mother Earth, which we take so much, is just like, it's necessary. So that's kind of my play on it, is like, no, it's my responsibility to get out here and spread the word as much as I can, because each person can make an impact that assists the earth in repairing itself or herself, or however you want to classify the earth as being, but it is a being. So that's kind of where I found that, I guess, the passion or the moral compass, I would say, to kind of, just be about that action instead of just lollygagging and wait for the change to happen. Actually, just being the change.
Okay, so being the change. I hear you, man. You say you feel like it's a responsibility and it don't feel good, to go knock on doors, because again, yeah, you do it. You out here knocking on doors, trying to get people in the community involved and get them active and let them know, hey, I got some resources over here around the corner. I'm your neighbor. I know I've known you to do that in terms of your organizing work. You say it's, I know it don't feel good, but I still feel like it's purpose driven. I feel like, because everyone doesn't do it, because it is hard, because it won't feel good, but you're being pulled. And I can understand why you say, I don't know where it comes from, because, I can relate. And I think that's why we connect, because like, even for me, I kind of just over time evolved into this understanding that I just love people. I love like nature. I love, I just love, and to the point, you see the shirt and I started putting out the message, I love y'all, some years ago, and wearing the message because it's true. And, but it just kind of emerged, it just evolved. And it's like my care and my passion for people inspire me to put out content like we do through this podcast and other podcasts that I've done. It inspires me to write, it inspires me to speak and train. And, so while I hear you, while I hear you, I feel like I say all that to say, I feel like you kind of downplaying it by saying it's just a responsibility, because, a lot of people could step up and take on that responsibility, but they don't. And I just think there's something special about you, and it's something that's pulling you towards doing that work.
Yeah, I guess you could say it's definitely like purpose driven. But I guess my purpose would lie in understanding the magnificent place that we reside in, and paying, respects to the earth, and just kind of, I guess that's what it is. If anything, to nail it down, like, it's my love of what we have here, and my love of being able to come out and ground myself and have peace. Looking at the plants and the animals, and it sounds cliche, man, but that's really it. Like, that's I found this space mentally, going through therapy and understand somebody recommending me to, hey, go out here and this grounding technique is one that you can use. That's kind of where it emerged. So that's the drive, that's the pinpoint of it. But the driving force, again, I think the driving force is more important than the inception or the conception of the thought or the thing. It's the discipline to get out there and do it. So that's why I'll rely more so on the responsibility, because I know when it doesn't feel good, and then I still have to do it. It's kind of like gardening. Sometimes you get down because it's aphids or vine borers, or your harvests are coming in like you want it to, but you still have the responsibility or the discipline to get out there and continue to do it, continue to till the ground, continue to do things organically. And that's kind of where I kind of separate the purpose from the just sheer responsibility, because I want my kids to have a place to live that's as wonderful as we have now. And if we continue to let big corporations or just the culture in and of itself to kind of blot out nature, to turn us back away from nature, now 2 generations from now they won't even have what we have now. And so that's the more of the moving factor. Maybe I'm paying it forward.
Okay. That responsibility to play it forward. Well, I appreciate you bringing up culture, because that's a good transition into the theme of, this episode and you being a guest during our popular culture theme. And, typically when I think about popular culture, or I used to think that it was more so about like what's going on in music and movies and the lives of celebrities and things like that.
Yeah.
But my understanding of popular culture has evolved, as well as, how we cover popular culture through the Grow Dialogue podcast is much more broader than that. So, when I think about popular culture now, I think about the systems, the ideas, the beliefs, the social norms, etc., that the majority of people in society have embraced and accepted. And so the Grow Dialogue podcast, we seek to amplify the voices of people like yourself who have stories and initiatives that we feel like need to be a part of the larger popular culture conversation. So, we're saying, there's more to pop culture than what others are talking about, and we're extending our brand of popular culture, through this platform. So, one of the things that you start to dive into that I think is appropriate for this segment is your love for nature and your responsibility to be in relationship, have a certain type of relationship with nature as nature's boy, that you're going to, it's almost like a reciprocal, you kind of spoke to some like symbiotic and reciprocal relationship, because you're honoring like nature does and gives, us so much. And I feel like you've noticed this pattern over your life where a lot of humans have turned their backs on nature and kind of ignored nature in their day-to-day comings and goings, especially, a lot of corporations over the last few decades that have led to a lot of environmental degradation, pollution and, deforestation and all these things that are impacting our climate, et cetera. So if I would again, one of the things that I find that's unique about you is, we could have a conversation about farming, growing food, and feeding your family. But for you, it goes beyond that. You call yourself nature's boy for a reason. And so in terms of encompassing, a popular culture theme around nature, if you can explain like us or like having a relationship with nature and what that means to you, and, just what you're doing to honor nature in the ways that you see best. If you can shed some light on that, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's we're naturally built in that symbiotic relationship. The whole universe is built in that relationship, and it's really impossible to deny nature in that relationship, because oxygen, CO2, grass, things that have to be decomposed also turn back to nature. So living beings go back to the earth. So it's just always a cycle. And I think our day-to-day routine, as you spoke of, is just a simple thing that drags us out, because we're more so concerned about, material things, or kind of panicking about where we're going to get the next meal from, or how we're going to pay this bill. So we're kind of pulled away systematically from nature. The thing that I do the most, that's kind of like, I guess, my thing, and kind of stepping out from just being a homesteader, is I realize that until we all do it to a certain degree, my little piece of what I do is not going to make that much of an impact. So even with homesteading, in the last couple of years, I realized we have a spring-fed lake in the back. We got chickens, we got rabbits, we got sheep. We're growing our food. We have everything here. But I quickly, went to my neighbors and started to get them to growing too, and understanding that this is necessary too for you, because I can't grow enough for all of us, right? So the whole thing is just like, if we all start playing a part in a minimal capacity, at least and I call it the snowball effect. Once you start growing something, or composting, or doing anything, even identifying wild plants, going outside and noticing the difference of the trees that you have in your neighborhood, it almost compounds every year, and you kind of get drugged into it more and more, because it's the natural pull. And I think just us being in nature and us being in partnership with nature is a natural thing. And I believe it's just getting back into that balance of that reciprocal cycle of just kind of just starting somewhere. So for me, it was just getting my neighbors to start growing as well, and kind of understanding like, hey, we can all do it. Even if I'm growing more than you, it's okay, because now we can trade things, we can barter, we can kind of get back into that community mentality, and kind of stepping away from capitalistic mentalities of just, hey, I have this, you ain't got it, I can't work with you. It's more like, no, let's be in, it kind of redevelops our culture as well. So if I come out of nature and I can witness it for free and get it for free and give back for free, then when I look at my neighbor, I'm prone to kind of go that route as well. And I'm living it, so I can speak with it with a sense of surety. But I wasn't raised to think like this. I was raised like most people.
Right.
Get it, grind,
Right.
get the car, get the shoes. big house, the whole nine. And it wasn't until I started really embracing nature, if we can kind of paint it like a thing,
Yeah.
and getting back into balance. It wasn't until I got there to where I started looking at things different. Everything shifted within my mentality. So it was a cultural shift for me. And so that's all I do is invite people, my neighbors specifically, or online, World Wide Web, social media. I just
Mm-hmm.
invite people to understand that yet we don't have to hoard it. You ain't gotta hide it. You can divide it. It's too easy. And
I love it.
especially when everybody's playing their part, it gets easier. So again, back to my, realization or revelation, 3 years prior, I understood that, yeah, it's even if I have everything on my own and my neighbors don't, then that literally is like, it's selfish. Like, who
Mm-hmm.
are you to have all this stuff and then you didn't even share with your neighbors the insight on how you got it? Like, nah, come on, let's start knocking on doors. And
Right.
that's just really where it came from, and that's what I believe in. Just on a grander scheme, um, we have the app Farm Fresh 24/7, which is hyperlocal food system platform.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been kind of connecting those dots within our food web on a localized measure to kind of just get all growers in the area to kind of connect and be able to resource share. And my urge to them again is to step out into your community, because it might be people out there who want to learn, but they have nobody to look to or work under.
Right.
Um, so I'm just moving them to kind of like, hey, go knock on some doors yourself, or put your garden in your front yard instead of the backyard. Don't
Right.
worry about people coming to steal it. Like, maybe you put an extra bed for free. So we
Right.
give a lot of our stuff away. So maybe put an extra bed in the front for free, and it really opens up conversations. People who will walk right past or drive right past are now stopping and saying, hey, what is that? Is that rosemary? Hey, do you do this? So it's
Right.
like engaging again. And now I can again plant that seed into them, and now they can go forth in their front yard and do the same. And if we just continue that model,
Yep.
again, here we are with that circular theme.
Yeah, yeah. So let me jump back in, because I mean, wow, you just shared so many things that bring up so much for me, around where we are as a society. And at the heart of it, right at the beginning, you talked about sharing, and you gave the example of the oxygen CO2 cycle, which is a powerful example for me. And it's something that I literally, probably a week doesn't go by where I don't think about that symbiotic give and take relationship that we have with nature in that way, and how that informs so much of my life when I came into this understanding that the most, let's just say, the one relationship or one element that we need in order to get at or do anything else that we do, which is, if we can't breathe oxygen, we can't live. We're not building wealth. We're not buying cars. We're not buying houses. We're not getting out here and grinding. We're not playing sports, watching movies, anything, if we can't breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if I think about the other elements of things that we need to survive as humans at the most basic level, right? Food, shelter, clothing, things like that. There's now a corporation in between that operation. There's a corporation, and then there's business, and there's a transaction.
Commerce, yeah.
That has been taken from the symbiotic give and take relationship that we once had with nature for those elements as well. And now there's a transaction, there's a business, there's something in the way of that. There's a middleman, there's a middle system elements, etc. But there isn't one. Or let me say this: we've been brought up to think in order to get what we need, we got to work to be able to buy, etc. We got to be able to, transact. However, there's this one relationship that corporations and man haven't gotten in the way of yet, and that's our relationship with oxygen and CO2. I'm sorry, our relationship with oxygen and, well, let's say, plants and trees, etc., who give us oxygen, and we give them CO2 in return. And again, it's the perfect example of biomimicry. And when I say biomimicry, is how, what I feel like everything that you just shared is an example of biomimicry, and is basically duplicating what nature does for us. Nature says, here, because we have a relationship, we can share this resource. We don't have to pay anyone to breathe. There's no corporation or system in the way of us breathing and sharing that CO2 with the plants, and them sharing oxygen with us in return. And I feel like nature gives us the perfect blueprint on how to thrive and survive, by literally sharing these natural processes and these natural resources. And I feel like everything that you just shared, everything that you just said speaks to that and is an example of biomimicry because it speaks to sharing. Now, we've grown up because of a lot of reasons that I won't get into here, but we've grown up in a society that says, like you said, hoard. It says build wealth. Success is building wealth. Well, what is wealth? Wealth is having more than you need. Wealth is having an access of resources beyond what you need. And I always like to say, because a lot of people, you know, including myself at one point, they're all about building wealth. That's a marker for success. And the thing that I've come into the understanding of is that there would be no context for wealth if there wasn't lack, if there wasn't poverty, if there weren't people who didn't have enough. Because otherwise, if we just shared everything, there would be the concept of wealth wouldn't even exist. And I like to say, so one of the things I like to say now is if you want to end poverty, you got to end wealth. But that's a harsh statement for a lot of people. I know some people listen to this right now, like, what? Like, we're raised and indoctrinated from an early age that building wealth is like the marker for success. But in nothing that you said that brings you joy or that is a marker for success is about hoarding, is about giving, is about sharing. So, you know, one of the reasons why I was so excited to bring you on is because you're like a living example of someone who isn't out here looking to build wealth in any context. You're looking to have enough for your family to survive, but also you're looking to then share what you're able to cultivate, your skills, your knowledge, you know, your resources, and you're looking to share that with others. And the other thing that I've noticed in our society is we've gotten more and more into this individualism, this wealth building, hoarding mindset. More and more people are now saying how they're lonely. More and more people don't know their neighbors, the people that live right in their neighborhood. We can't, you know, knock on doors without people being like, yo, who are you? Or, you know, what are you doing knocking on my door? It's like an offense now to knock on your neighbor's doors. It could be people that live 5-10 houses down from you and have no clue who you are or what your life is about. But you know what? If you're growing food and you're sharing it, or something along that chain, or you have a skill, you're creating something and you're sharing it, you're taking something that in many years past that we people did, right? And you're getting back to it, because I know that's what your movement is all about, getting back to that. Now you see the loneliness epidemic, you know, going away, because now we're starting to build those local relationships. So, you know, when I hear you say hyperlocal food systems, I know that there's a greater movement beyond food. It's also about building relationships and getting back to being a true community. And the ways that corporations and wealth building mindsets have robbed us of this very natural desire as humans that we have. So all those things came up for me as you were speaking, and I thought it was a good time for me to kind of spill some of the ways I think about it. Do you have anything you'd like to add, or anything came up for you based on what I just shared?
No, definitely. That was it, man. I know we kind of already been in cahoots, man, for so long. We kind of know each other. But yeah, that was really the master plan behind it all, right? Right. It's just like, aside from the food, it was like, man, if you start growing something. So my whole plan is to get 5 neighbors to grow 3 different things, and then we start exchanging. And those 5 neighbors, 3 things, that's 15 items now. But more so than the items, you just built relationships with 5 of your neighbors. And I'm going to probably coin it as like a gardening bloom. I want to kind of do it like a challenge, man. But it's literally impacting your community to where now those generational age gaps are kind of closing. I get a slew of different ages here, the whole 9, and it's just beautiful to see the older generation who doesn't know the younger generation kind of mingling and interacting in an authentic way, and kind of being able to open up conversations about, hey, what's going on in the neighborhood, or what's going on here. So the bigger picture is community, because again, that was my realization. Like, you can't do it by yourself. You're not supposed to be alone, and it's not supposed to be that hard either. Like, that's kind of where people's mind goes when they think of food systems. They think, I can't do that. I didn't grow up doing that. I don't have no grandfather that did it. I don't have no land. And it just automatically out of the gates, it seems unrealistic. So that whole growing food together thing, when I just say, oh, just grow 3 things, well, okay, I can work with 3. And
Mm-hmm.
it just kind of, again, just making that transition easier. And then again, when you have support, that's the community. So we
Right.
all know we need that support element. So here we are trying to shift our cultural norm. We have to have that support team so we can go back and dialogue about, hey, how did your day go when you went to knock on somebody? Oh yeah, I ran into that too. Hey, keep on pushing, keep going, da 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 da. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just like we have to start there, and that is the master plan within the scheme is literally like learning who your neighbors are again. Because now what can we do when we know our neighbors? We understand what they do. Oh, you're a mechanic. Well, hey, you mind if can you take a look at my car real quick? And in exchange, I have some eggs. I can swap it out, or I can pay you
Right.
as we go. Maybe it's a month long thing, but it's like it's so many opportunities that present itself. So we just did a growers exchange here, at our property. It was the first of
Okay.
many,
Mm-hmm.
and we kind of had different people, from growers to artisans, making soap making and things like that, to actually healthcare professionals, like you described earlier when we talked about services, like
Right.
introducing those services. So I would set out to just have growers here and then build up slowly to having services and things like that. But people just popped up in support, and we already have people who are willing to lend their service expertise or their hobby
Right.
for something else that you made at home, a handmade soap, a knit sweater, whatever. And it's just like, again, we're creating that interconnection that our
Yeah.
communities are made up of, and that diversity that our communities are made up of, that where we thrive, similar to biomimicry.
Indeed, man. And I want to talk more about the app in a moment, because I love how you're bringing in the modern day technology and what people are so used to now and using this to amplify this movement. But what it sounds like to me is that, it's like creating, a more sustainable form of wealth. So
Hmm.
instead of thinking of wealth as like cents and dollars, we're thinking about wealth as in relationships and people, right?
Yes,
And it's
yes,
like, man, what's more valuable? This paper and these coins, or my relationship with you, my
yeah.
relationship with you, and you, and knowing that
Hmm.
we have all the skills and the resources we need to help one another. And if we get rid of the middleman, the middle element or the middle system, we can create a new system of wealth that is not only more sustainable for us as humans and improves our relationships and improves the idea of building community, but it's also better for the environment.
Right,
Right? We're taking
right.
we're taking away less resources from the environment. We're taking away less resources from the earth. We're having people, doing things that they're passionate about, and in a lot of ways sharing their passion. Because a lot of times, what makes us feel good is when we can share the things that we're innately gifted at and love doing with people around us and that are in our lives.
Right.
And one of the tricks, of this system of capitalism is that it takes things that used to be relational and makes them transactional.
Hmm.
And something as simple as asking a friend or family member to give you a ride to the airport, where it used to be relational, where now that 30-minute ride, I could be having a conversation and catching up with someone I love that's filling me as a human being, giving me food for my soul. Whereas now
Hmm.
we can just push a button on the app and call an Uber and ride with a stranger and pay for it, but something's lost in that. Yeah, it
Yep.
feels convenient and it's a dope business concept, etc. But I don't think a lot of people think of the flip side, the opportunity cost for making everything into a business. And
Yep.
when we take things that used to be relational and make them transactional, we're losing something. And what we're losing is community. And also what we're losing is, and then again, there's a cost to the environment as well that, again, I won't get too deep, but I think just by me saying it, I think some people can probably start connecting the dots on the
Right.
ways that we're impacting the environment by putting everything into the capitalistic system, that things that used to be relational, that build relationships and strengthen communities.
Hmm.
So it's not intentional. This is how systems work. So,
Right.
as a systems thinker, one of the things I know is that it's not about fighting it. It's not about arguing and blaming and pointing the finger. It's just about creating new systems that are
Bingo.
rooted in the things that we're talking about. And I feel like, what you're doing is putting a modern spin on a system that humans, once used to be the norm, used to be the default. And you're putting a modern spin on it, with your outreach, your grassroots organizing, and then, knocking on doors. But then you took it to another level. You said, instead of knocking on doors, let's expand this by creating an app that can accelerate and amplify the idea of people growing something. And they can live in wherever they live. They don't have to have 3.5 acres. They can have just their front lawn and get some buckets or some boxes or their backyard, right? And anyone can do it, start growing something and then sharing it on your app with their local neighbors. So tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, so basically Farm Fresh 24/7 is that app. And aside from just having access to local growers, it is for anyone who has a particular thing like baking bread, homemade goods, homemade house cleaning items. So again, that's that commercialized spectrum, big box spectrum where we use Clorox bleach, but back in the day it was more natural means of kind of antibacterial, antimicrobial aspects, kimchi and probiotics and things like that. So it's not even that you have to be a grower as in plants and herbs and produce, but you can actually just be a maker of soaps or tinctures or teas and things like that. And so basically it's again creating that interlocking, that interwebbing aspect of our community and reaching out to people who have those innate passions that they kind of create. We classify them as hobbies, but it's somewhere where you can bring your hobby and exchange it for something that you actually need. So you can, authentic dialogue. We just use that because that's really important, especially here on our property. Like that's what we talk about a lot with building community, conflict resolution. I had a conversation with a guy the other day about the need to he had a problem with one of our neighbors and he was mad about it. And I was like, hey, well, maybe we should just talk to him about it. Like these are the things, but I learned that from you. You gave that to me for free in exchange. You come by, I'm gonna give you some plants and bless you, send you home. But that's how we circulate that energy to the utmost. So that's basically what this is. And again, I'm kind of overshooting it given the broad scheme. But again, it's a way to resource map. You get to know the people who come down to buy tomatoes or barter for tomatoes, either way, and then they talk a little bit about themselves, what they do, what moves them, and you kind of have that conversation that brings you in more of a intimate, level. And now, hey, when I have a problem, I remember this guy. Let me call him. He's gonna slide right back down and help me out for the, you know what I mean? So
Indeed.
That's just really what the basis is. It's just Farm Fresh 24/7. Even though it says Farm Fresh, it's just an all-encompassing aspect of being sustainable and that community outreach as far as resource mapping. That was it in a nutshell, and it's been rolling so far. We have it really. We haven't emerged past Atlanta yet, but Atlanta is a perfect place to start something like this because the airport and Hartsfield Jackson is the world port, so everybody comes to Atlanta at some point in time to catch a connecting flight or what have you. Right. So if we can get it started here and build the infrastructure, build that prototype here of how it works and how people can envision it, they can look at it and put their hands on it. I believe it can go, worldwide, easily, and we can kind of, like you say, with that technological advancement, like we have the world in our palms at all times, and we have communications from here to, other continents in a snap of a finger. We can start to, build these these models out that we conceptualize and put them on Front Street, if you will. And learn how they work and then send them out like, hey, this is where we learned it, this is how we did it, don't forget this part because it won't work without this. And it's kind of like just again that giving modality of just like, hey, let me share with you how we did it here so you can go back and do it in your own neck of the woods. And
indeed so I understand that right now the push and the you're building right here in the metro Atlanta area, but can folks in other places start download it now and maybe start creating some local buzz in their area if they would like?
Absolutely. And that's kind of the call to action that has been of late. As of late, I've been kind of just telling people like, hey, I'm in Atlanta. Yes, I'm just really just boots on the ground, but you can do it too. You can start organizing in your neighborhood, your area. We just did a presentation with the city of Jonesboro, which is kind of our next door neighbor, here in Riverdale, and we did a presentation with them in the local gardening community. And this is just all off of the love of just understanding what we can do collectively. Um, so yeah, it's just been wonderful, and this is really it's going to take somebody to put their boots on and kind of walk around and canvas
Right.
at the local level for this thing to actually work everywhere. But it's based off of necessity. A lot of people are witnessing the frustrations of inflation right now, and before that, it was COVID that showed us the fragility of our food system. So within that chaos is a wonderful emergence of opportunity. So I think if we just all kind of again take a small part to pick, if you're somebody who just shares it online, or somebody who actually starts to grow and share it with your community, like it's many ways we can kind of just chip away at this systematic structure that we know needs to be kind of dismantled in order for a new one to evolve.
Indeed,
Yeah,
indeed.
so, yeah.
So one of the things that we like to ask our guests is if they can share a story that has inspired them or their work. So is there something that comes to mind for you, like a story, a theme that keeps you going, that maybe was an inspiration point in the past, or something that just is a constant story that kind of motivates you to do what you do?
I'm not much of a story guy, man. I'm not gonna hold you. I'm not gonna make something up on the fly either.
Yeah,
But
if you don't have nothing, that's
yeah,
cool. We'll keep it pushing.
I don't have anything. I think the first story, that's my one, man. That's the
Okay.
one that kind of the food shortage, and I guess it's just been a compilation of the same thing over and over and over. That's how systems work, right? So it's like it doesn't really fix itself. It's a system. So once you find that little glitch, and you're like, hold on, that's not right. So it's really the same story with civil unrest and chaos based off food systems. You can say the same thing and paint the picture across the board. I kind of see the same story happen over and over and over and over and over. So
Okay.
yeah.
So let me ask you this. If you can close this out with just sharing your vision of the future as it relates to hyperlocal food systems, what would it be? 5-10 years from now, what's your vision for the future?
5, 10 years from now, I think you touched on it. We are going back into the understanding that we need to be in relationship to co-create with Earth, and we need to be stewards again of Earth and kind of reclaiming our responsibility to Earth. So 5 to 10 years from now, I can see the landscape, figuratively and literally, changing within just localized platforms. Front yards won't just be cut clean and nice, and the little lines in the front. I'm seeing wild plants, pollinator pockets, front yard gardens, backyard gardens. I'm seeing communities rallying to support each other as far as infrastructure and kind of building their own trade systems. I just really see it coming back to where we are more in the line with our passions and purposes versus bills and our monetized gains. A lot of this is documented already, man. Everybody's talking about millennials and everybody else who's walking away from jobs and paying 6 figures and just saying, "Hey, I'm not happy. I'm
Right.
gonna go this. I'm doing this. I'm backpacking across Europe because I'm buying a tiny home and I'm living off the land because it makes me happy." I
Yeah.
think we're gonna go back into just happiness being that driving factor of success versus monetization or
Yeah.
capitalism. That's what I see. 5 to 10 years that's a quick jump to say something so bold, but I think right now, time like we're moving, as Ti would say, expeditiously, man, and
Yeah.
we're kind of stacking it up really fast, and I think that's due part and parcel to our technological advances, and because we
Indeed.
can converse with, find those like-minded people so fast.
Mhm.
Again, that's that community that we're
Yeah.
kind of building, even if it's across the globe. But I think it's going to circle back around to being hyper local, and
I love it.
that's it.
I love it. I love it. Man, well, I think you've given the people a lot to chew on.
Yeah,
Pun
yeah,
intended. Pun intended with
yeah.
this food system conversation. And
There you go.
where can folks find you if they want to follow you, follow the Sills Family Farm, which is your brand, which we didn't even bring up until now. But
Yeah,
Lawrence has the Sills Family Farm. Where you do your agro education, your agro tourism through. You have the Farm Fresh, 24/7 app. So how can people
yeah.
continue to follow your journey? I love following you on IG. So you got to tell the people how to follow you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say IG is the best way for me because real life nature, boy. I don't be on the computer like that all the time. But IG Southside Nature, SOUF Side Nature. Oh, let me say it all the way. SOUFSIDE_nature. And then Seals Family Farm on IG and Facebook. Um, but yeah, that's how you can follow us for that farm fresh, man. That's really, if you want to follow me there, man. That's it. Like follow me there and be the change that we're calling for. That means more to me than anything. We did open up a Indiegogo account, Farm Fresh 24/7, so we can kind of start crowdfunding. The biggest thing we're having trouble with now is marketing. And again, like I'm saying, it's just a one man band right now for now. And I'm hoping to kind of branch off and kind of get some people to help and digitally and physically, as far as like passing out flyers or helping to build garden beds and installing them in people's yards. We're doing all that stuff. So Indiegogo, Farm Fresh 24/7. That'll be a great support as well. Other than that, yeah, get out there and grow some.
No doubt, no doubt. And I'm going to be one of those people growing something. And like Lawrence said, he already blessed me with some starter plants and some good things recently. So, man, it's been a pleasure to share this platform with you and introduce our listeners and watchers to Southside Nature, Sills Family Farm. And bro, I'll be in touch, man. But again, thank you. And to all the listeners, as you all know, I love y'all. Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to the Grow Dialogue podcast. Remember to join our Grow Dialogue community to continue the conversation, activate authentic dialogue, and to get exclusive content, discounts, and special offers on curated artwork and music from independent artists from the Americas. Check out our show notes for more info and visit www.growdialogue.com to join our live events. Don't forget to support us on Patreon. We really appreciate your support.